And Neek, did you hear what KD responded when he was asked if he's worried about playing too many minutes?
What he said?
He said, "Let me die out there." What's up, y'all? We are the HoopStorians. I'm Tony Styles. That is Unique over there.
Uh,
Let's get into this day in NBA history. This day in NBA history actually comes from just last year. Damian Lillard sets the franchise and career high record with 71 points. His 13 three-pointers snapped a two-game skid with a 131-114 victory over the Houston Rockets. His 13 three-pointers were also one shy of Klay Thompson's record. Damian Lillard's currently got 20,653 points. He's down about 8 points from last year. He's shooting 4% less than he was last year from the field, 4% less than he was from the 3-point line, and about 8% less than he was from the 2-point field goal percentage. Do you think that one he can hit 30, and do you think this is a down year, or do you think this is the current Dame we're going to see moving forward?
he might hit 30. As far as do I think this is what we're gonna see moving forward? Maybe not. I think it's more so him getting familiar with being in a new organization, being in a new stadium, things like that, being in a new uniform. To players, these things do something to them mentally. So I think he's just getting more acclimated to being on a different team than what he's accustomed to playing for. I think once he does get more comfortable, we'll get he'll get back to what we're accustomed to seeing, but then age can be a factor, so it's hard to say just yet.
Well, then that was this day in NBA history. Let's get into it. We are in the coming down to the stretch run, like I said, the last 25 games of the season or so, and it had me thinking. Throughout history, I think very rarely does the best team win the title. They keep saying, is this the best team? Who's going to win it? And usually pick the best team, who you think is going to win it. So I kind of want to go through about a 20-year period where we kind of go from 93 to 2013 and we figure out if the best team really won the title. And what I mean by that is when they are the best team, there's just no stopping that team. Are they really the best team? Case in point would be, and we're going to get into them, but I think the '01 Lakers would be a good point. I don't really think there's an argument that they weren't the best team. They absolutely destroyed everybody in the competition. There was no really way we could see them losing. So I'm going to start off with you. We're going to start in 93. We're going to go from 93 to 2013. 1993, the Chicago Bulls won the title. Do you think if there was a twist anywhere else, maybe they could have won? Because let's just start off with this. If they don't get that block shot in game 5 with the Charles Smith block shot, the Knicks probably win that game. They're up 3 games to 2. Do you think they beat the Bulls?
At that point in time, no, I think at that point Mike was ready. So I think whatever obstacle he was faced with, at least starting from 91 moving forward, I think he was ready at that point. And obviously it's not just Mike on the team, but him being the leader of that team at that point in time. And they seem to follow his suit. So I feel like a good commander like Jordan, yeah, they would have figured that one out. So I
What
do feel like they still would have won that.
Okay. What about against the Suns? The Suns, they beat the Suns 4 games to 2. They actually scored even. They actually scored even. Even though that the greetings to you as well. Um, they actually scored even. They each
I
averaged
got
99 points a game. The Bulls, even though they won 4 games versus 2, it's they broke even in points. It was the only game where they. It's the only series where they didn't blow out a team in the Suns in 6 games.
you.
Do you think if they had Cedric Ceballos, who was injured that entire season, Cedric was getting 13 points in 21 minutes at about 57.6% shooting that year? Do you think Cedric Ceballos could have maybe swayed it a couple points and that could have been, a Suns win?
For the entire finals or just a game or two?
Well, the Suns only needed to win 2 more games and they would have won.
I don't think it would have mattered.
You don't think it would have mattered?
No. Like I could see like for instance, I could probably see a game working, but I don't think Cedric Sabalas would have been enough to overcome the Bulls that series.
Okay. Let's move on. 94, we had the Rockets win it. Game six, they were down 3-2. John Starks goes 2 for 18. Um, do you think maybe if Starks just quit shooting, the Knicks win? Or were the Rockets really the best team?
the Rockets were the Rockets were really the best team at that point in time. The Knicks were definitely one of those teams that was gonna give you a run for your money.
Hmm.
The Knicks wanted it. At least they seemed hungry during that time. Always were right there, but just couldn't get it. Couldn't get over the hump. But nah, I don't think it plays out any differently. I do truly think Houston was the better team.
What if Michael Jordan doesn't retire? Do the Rockets still win it?
Now that's the argument. Because you got the sides that say the Rockets only won because Mike was down, but then you also have the reports where Mike acknowledges the greatness of Hakeem. So I feel as though the Bulls would have won those two championships as well. I do think the Bulls would have won 94 and 95, but at the same time, I also do feel like the right team won. I do feel as though Houston was supposed to win. So when I put the Bulls up against that theory, it's possible that Houston could have still won. But the fact that once Mike came back ready, he was able to three-peat again is what kind of sways me to think that nah, that would have been a Bulls.
Well, actually, and this was my next question, and we were beat to it. What if the Sonics didn't lose to the Nuggets in the first round that series, and they ended up playing them in the Western Conference Finals? The Sonics always seem to have the Rockets number, but they also always folded in the playoffs. So, what would you say?
Honestly, I hate to say it, I think the Sonics probably would have folded again under that
Hmm.
pressure. I don't. It's a matter of who was gonna stop Elijah Wan.
Hmm.
Because they can get some people to throw up some points like a Kemp, throw up some points like a Peyton. They had a complete team where, they had some scores, you feel me, that'll get hot. They may not be averaging like 20, 30 points a game, but at the same time, they had those people that was going to jump in and hit you with like three crucial threes when you needed them. And that matters down the stretch. So I feel as though the Rockets would have been able to put together some runs that would have been able to help them get past the Sonics.
So where I'm at is ultimately I like the '93 Bulls. Like I said, I think that was the best Bull teams. I like the Suns better than the Knicks with the matchup. I like the addition of Cedric Ceballos. Throw somebody else at like a Pippen or Jordan, in the post because he worked in the post. But no, ultimately I don't think it matters. '94 I think was kind of the Rockets year. I think if any year that was going to be the year that they got him because the Bulls were coming off three straight. So maybe
Very
not
so.
'95 if they had been gelling the whole time, but yeah, Hershey Hawkins was a beast. Well,
Yeah.
20 points a game, couple all stars. Um, but yeah, I think the '94 Rockets overall were the best team. Let's move on to '95 if we're going there. So '95, here's the big what if. This Phoenix Suns. This Phoenix Suns had the best record in the league when Danny Manning suffered a season ending knee injury when Danny Chase fell into his knee. The Suns were up 3-1 without Danny Manning, and instead they had to run with Joe Klein and Danny Shays against Hakeem Olajuwon. Do you think the Suns being up 3-1 without Danny Manning, do you think that would have made a difference?
You said being up 3-1 without Danny Manning, would that
They
have
were
made a
they they
difference?
were they were up 3-1 without Danny Manning, and we replaced Joe Klein and Danny Shays with Danny Manning instead. Do you think the Suns beat the Rockets?
No.
And why is that? You don't think an all-star and a former number one pick is worth 2 points a game?
See, the way you phrase the question, it sounds like you're asking me if I feel as though replacing Danny Manning with them is going to help beat the Rockets. I feel as though Danny Manning would have been better against Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah, Danny Manning would have been guarding Hakeem because he was long like him, and it was a better option than Joe Klein and Danny Shays. The Suns didn't really have it, and not only that, at least Danny Manning could put 20 on Hakeem, as opposed to Joe Klein and Danny Shays not putting anything on him at all. So I think the Suns the year before they were up 2-0 on them. They took them to 7. They lost in game 7 94. They lost in game 7 again in 95. I think adding an all-star was enough to push them over the edge. I mean, cuz you got to remember they had an all-star in Kevin Johnson. They had an
Hmm.
all-star in Dan Marley. They had an all-star in Charles Barkley. They had a all-star in Danny Manning. They had a three-point shooter, 15 a game guy in Wesley Person. They had a 22-point a game guy in Wayman Tisdale. So yeah, I just think the depth overall they would have beat them. But that's the whole point of this
No, they could
exercise.
have.
We
No,
don't know.
so not to misinterpret what I was saying, because like I was saying, I think I misinterpreted what you were asking. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel as though Danny Manning would have helped them to win. Yes.
So you say so. There we go. So we don't think necessarily the '95 Rockets were really the best. We are in agreement to that one. Even though they won the title, they probably weren't the best team that year. That probably should have went to the Suns, is what I would say if I had to go. '96. That's the Bulls, 72-10. Any argument there?
Nope.
I can't think of a scenario where they lost that season either. So, maybe if they would have switched Peyton on D instead of in game 4 or whatever that was, maybe they get an extra game or something like that. But yeah, I don't
Right.
think they're. Yeah, I just don't
I
think they're
think it
beating the
changed the
Bulls.
overall.
I mean, a real simple math equation for that is the Bulls had 3 Hall of Famers and the Sonics had one. So that's hard. That's hard for one, and the one Hall of Famer wasn't even the best player on the floor. So it'd be different, if you were the best player. All that. What about '97? Do you think anybody could have toppled the Bulls that year?
No.
Okay, well let me tell you why you're wrong, okay? And let me tell you why you're wrong. David Stern fucked it up for us, okay? Because the Knicks could have beat him that year. The Knicks, that was the first year that the Knicks got Allen Houston and Larry Johnson. They had Oakley, Starks, Ewing. Let me just give you some numbers. Hold on. I pulled up some numbers just to show you this. Okay, so the Bulls, they were first in offensive rating back-to-back years 96, 97. But their offensive rating slipped. They were first in defensive rating 96, fourth in defensive rating 97. First in net rating, but their net rating slipped as well. Against the Knicks that year, they were 2-2. How much do you think they beat the Knicks by in those two wins combined?
I don't think it really matters, to be quite honest. I get the point you're making. I don't think that matters. A win is a win. So let's say they skated. Let's say they barely got passed by two total for both of those games that they
Three
won. It
total.
doesn't matter. Three. Okay, three total for both of those games they won. It doesn't change the fact that this is regular season. You feel me? It would have been different going up against the Bulls in the finals. Jordan has shown that he's going to give you anywhere from an extra 7 to 10 points going into the finals. So I don't think the Knicks, and they were the Bulls competition back then. The Knicks, the Heat, Indiana, all of that. But I don't think they were going to beat the Bulls.
I think they
They
would
would have
have.
gave them a run. I think they would have ran them. They would have probably had them back against the wall. But I don't see the Knicks passing the Bulls. Unfortunately for them, they had to live in their shadow in the East. Unfortunately, until Jordan retired, and by then it was a wrap for him.
Well, hold on. We got a question. I got to break off this because I want to let you know this. Okay, so can Bronny James get to Anthony Edwards, SGA, Donovan Mitchell level, or is he more of a role guy? So far, what he has shown is he's more of a role guy. Doesn't mean that he can't elevate or anything like that. However, though, SGA right now is a legit MVP candidate. Very few people get to that. We have never seen a father and son equal a MVP candidate. So I would say absolutely not. He cannot get to an SGA level, or there is a very small percentage chance that he gets to that level. Donovan Mitchell is the worst player out of those three, so it would be
Yeah.
best chance that he could get to him. He can't shoot in the playoffs. So anybody that can't shoot in the playoffs, he is by far the worst player out of the three. So
I think
yeah,
anything I think anything's possible, especially when you got a father like LeBron that's, helping you. Obviously, LeBron can't just give him his skills, but at the same time, he can train, that type of beast. You feel me? And if Bronny got it in him, because Bryce seemed to have it. You feel me? So for your point, we haven't seen that combination. You're right. We haven't seen it yet. However, we have seen that these next generation players have been better than their dad in some instances. Obviously, not always the case, and it's going to be very difficult to be as good as LeBron. Like that's some huge shoes to fill it. But at the same time, like who knows what the Jameses are going to do? And Bryce. Bryce is looking better than Bronny, to be honest. And if any one of them were to do it, I could see Bryce doing it. But
So what
go ahead.
percentage would you give? What percentage would you give? Can Bronny James get to an SGA MVP level? 31
Bronny,
points a game.
the way I've seen the games I've seen Bronny play, I don't see it. I don't see Bronny as that caliber player, at least not yet. I
Yeah, I
see
don't see
Bron
it all.
yeah, I see Bronny as more of a role player.
So I'll give it. So here, 0.00000001. That's where I'm at as far as SGA. And if we're talking like where can you get to Donovan Mitchell, 0.000001. From what I've seen, doesn't mean that he can't level up, but I mean Donovan Mitchell's still a 28 point a game guy. So that's it's hard to get to. Let's keep it moving. 98 Bulls. They
Mhm.
beat they beat the Pacers in 7. Each home team won every game. If the roles were reversed, was the 98 Bulls still beating the Pacers? Because Reggie wasn't scared of the moment like Carl Malone.
Yeah, Reggie wasn't scared. Reggie ain't never scared.
Hmm.
He used to drive us crazy. Um, I still like the Bulls for real. I do. I still like the Bulls because once again, we're dealing with a different kind of beast. That Indiana team was stacked. They were, but none of them had that fire like Mike. You feel me? And then, like you and I've discussed this, it's usually the best players that win the series. You feel me? So it's like when we got Mike going up against who's Indiana's best player. You feel me?
Reggie.
Reggie. Exactly. Reggie compared to Mike, and then you got, and that's no offense to him, it's just real. Like you feel me? Who you picking, Reggie or Mike? And
But
then
we
when it
seen a
comes,
guy like Curry own a guy like LeBron. We saw a guy like Russell own a guy like Chamberlain.
Curry is a Curry is a different kind of star than what Reggie is. Like you feel me? Like he's a tier above what Reggie is as far as competition wise. Because Curry gets those GOAT arguments. Reggie wasn't getting those. And I'm not saying it's just, I'm not saying Curry deserves them or doesn't deserve it. What I am saying is Reggie was nobody's GOAT unless you were talking about shooting, whereas Steph has legit arguments for one of the best basketball players ever. So it's
Okay.
like going up against him, comparing it's a little different, but I feel you.
Yeah. Yeah. So where I'm at right now is like I said, I think 95 definitely changes. I think 97 has a strong argument. 98, no, I think the Bulls would have, and even if the Bulls couldn't, I think the league would have found a way to make them win. Um, so yeah, I got that. What about 99? So the best one I got for that is the Spurs beat the Knicks 4 games to 1. They were beating them by like 10, 12, some by a point. What if Ewing played in that series? Because he didn't play at all. Now you can't tell me Ewing against the Twin Towers wouldn't have helped them at all.
Oh,
But
I'm not
was it
saying
enough?
yeah,
Right?
I'm
Is it
not
enough
gonna
to
even
swing the
try to.
series?
I ain't gonna even try to. We talking about Ewan, who's what at that point Ewan's still good for what a good 20 and 10,
Somewhere
20.
around there.
Yeah, I mean, and then on top of that, we're talking about somebody who has constantly been right there. You feel me? Ewan has been right there so many times. You can't tell me he wasn't ready. You can't tell me something's got to give at this point. Like, yo, I'm gonna have to walk away with at least one of these titles. So I think you add Patrick Ewing with his greatness and all of his failures combined. I think that would have made him get into everybody's head. I think that would have had him on an offensive tear. He'd have been hitting them with them hooks and his little shuffle he'd be doing. So yeah, I think Ewing playing definitely would have changed the outcome of that series.
Yeah, and that's why we're not talking about the Heat. We're talking about the Knicks. The Spurs and Knicks did meet up in '99 in the finals. So, but do you think that would have been enough to swing it from 1 game to 4?
I mean, possibly. I mean, it could have.
See, I think it would have been more 4-6, 4-7, still the Spurs, but I don't think that would have been enough. But I definitely think it would have been an interesting component, especially because I considered the Knicks much deeper with Larry Johnson,
Hmm.
Marcus Camby, Patrick Ewing, Allen Houston, Latrell Sprewell.
Yeah,
So
I still like the Spurs in that series, but I can't say that it would surprise me to see the Knicks finally overcome. But yeah, I would have been, especially then. I wasn't a Knicks fan either, so I was definitely going for the Spurs regardless.
let's move on to 2000. The Blazers versus the Lakers, 4 games to 7, up by 15. The meltdown with like what 9:43 to go. Do you really feel like the Lakers were the better team than them, or do you think it was just a Portland meltdown?
But I'm gonna tell you why. Portland was as deep as they were. For them to melt down and have as many good players as you have, to me, kind of suggests you're not ready. It kind of suggests you're not as good as we think you are. You're not as good as you look on paper, because how do you have so many good players and y'all are melting down? I get it's the Lakers. I get they're having a breakdown to the Lakers. I do take that into consideration. But I feel as though the Lakers were not as deep, and most teams were not as deep as Portland was at that point. So it was like, yes, you have the punch, the 1-2 combination that Shaq and Kobe, and then you have the fishes, you have the role players, you have the coach that's giving you this great offensive strategy, but at the same time, you have Portland with the likes of Scottie Pippen, the likes of who we got, Wallace, Stoudemire. It's just way too many people.
Stoudemire, Steve Smith, Bonzi Wells, Detlef Shrimp got there the next year. Um, you had Jermaine O'Neal still on that team, although he wasn't playing. You had Arvydas Sabonis,
These are all players that individually could
Pippen.
give you. You feel me? These are all individual players that can give you 20
Hmm.
on any
So
given night.
I feel as if the Lakers were not better, and the main reason why is because a lot of people don't factor this. 99 2000 Kobe was all NBA second, third team Kobe. He wasn't that all NBA first team Kobe. So, so I feel like if we played that series a bunch of times, I feel the Blazers would win that series more often than not. Especially if there's no league agenda and things like that. I feel like the Blazers win that series more often than not. Let's
Talent
move
wise,
on.
they had it. Talent wise, I feel as though it's just mentally something wasn't there mentally, which is why I say that the Lakers were slightly better. But I'm not saying on a skill level. I'm more so saying mentally, the Lakers were
Definitely.
a better team.
Well, I think the difference was, especially in that series, I think it was Phil Jackson against Adelman. One's considered the greatest coach of all time, and the other's Rick Adelman. So that's where I think it. 0-1, that's where the Lakers absolutely dominated, went 15-1. Anybody you could see beating them?
No.
Okay, let's move. That's 0-1 then. 0-2. What about the Kings Lakers series? The 4-3. What do you think of that one?
Man, that was one of those series that definitely could have went either way, and for the most part, I think many people saw the Kings winning that. I was one of them. I wanted the Kings to win, even though I'm a Laker and a Kobe fan and everything like that. At that point in time, I was definitely rooting for Sacramento, and they, as far as their lineup, I like their I like their pieces a little better than I like the Lakers at that point.
Well, it went like this. It went like this. The Lakers legitimately won game one. The Kings won games 2 and 3. The Kings were up huge in game four, blowing them out. They hit that Samaki Walker three at the end of the first half that shouldn't have counted, but they counted. And that's now why we have lights on the back of the backboard to see if that really counts or not. And then that's when Robert Ory hit that three at the end. Uh, the Kings win game five. Game six is when Mike Bibby's jaw fouled Kobe Bryant's elbow. Um, and they say it was rigged. In game seven, the Lakers legitimately won. So it was like a 5-2. It was like a 5-2 thing to the Kings. The Lakers absolutely were not the best team. Um, And just like they said, yeah, it was a bull calls for Lakers fouls. It was a bullshit game 6. Like I said, it was a bullshit game 4, and then the Kings just didn't show up at all in game 7. So credit to the Lakers for that. The Kings did not come to play in game 7, especially in overtime. Um, but nonetheless, yeah. So I don't think 0-2 really should have went to the Lakers. I should think it should have went to the Kings. What about 2003? We have the Spurs beating the Nets in 4. We have the Spurs, I mean, not 4 and 6. We have the Map beating the Mavs in 6, and Dirk was injured in that series, missed games and all that. So do you think that the Spurs still beat the Mavs even if Dirk's playing in 03?
I do. I think the Spurs, because the Spurs have shown consistent domination for what, like a 10-year stretch. Like even when they weren't winning titles, they were always right there to where they're going to the postseason. You know what they're gonna do. You feel me? And let's be real, the teams in the Western Conference were not happy to have to go up against the Spurs no matter what round they were in. And then should they get to the finals, once they got to the finals, they're not going to get to the finals to get blown out. So whoever they're going up against, so whoever this best team is that they have to go up against, is not going to be no walk in the park for them against the Spurs. So because of that, because the Spurs has shown that we can go and show consistently that we're winning in our conference every year for a long run, no, they were where they were supposed to be. So I think the Spurs still win.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. That's the year that Weber blew out his knee and was never the same after that. If he doesn't blow out his knee, do the Spurs beat the Kings?
That season, maybe not, because this is still a prime Weber. This is still a Weber that's one of the
What?
premier players in the league at this point in time.
Weber,
The
Bibby, Stojakovic,
right, you feel me? So you got Bibby, who's an
Christie,
offensive Christie too. So you feel me? You got the handler, you got the power guy, you got the
D,
shooters, you got the defense. So yeah, that's an
Vladi.
all
You got the
around team.
passing and the flopping.
They have everything that the Spurs had, but it was quicker. You feel me? More athletic. Maybe not as disciplined, but like I said, more athletic, quicker. So yeah, I kind of edged the with a healthy Weber. I could edge
Mhm.
the Kings in that. I could see the Kings beating them that season.
Yeah, that's a real toss up for me. I just don't know who would win 0-3, especially after coming off 0-2, feeling like they blew it, and then being hungry for an 0-3. That was that year, if you remember, where Doug Christie got in the fight with Rick Fox, and he rocked him, sock him, punched him in the jaw in the preseason, and then they were fighting in the tunnel. They kept it going.
That's so funny. See these dudes scrapping. That's hilarious.
Okay, 0-4
Especially
then.
when I didn't even see that coming. Now I think about it, Christie didn't even seem like that type. But my
Well,
bad. Go
well, I was going to say, if you're as henpecked as he is by his woman, you got to get that aggression out somewhere.
hmm
0-4 is interesting. So let's go with 0-4. So the Pistons won, right? First off, let's go with this. If Karl Malone had been healthy in the finals, do the Lakers win that?
I think so.
And if they go more to Shaq instead of Kobe, who was just awful that series?
Both of those things, yes. I definitely see a different outcome.
Okay.
Um,
Then
my
then let
bad.
me
Go
ask
ahead.
you this. Then let me ask you this. If the Timberwolves weren't missing Sam Cassell and didn't have Kevin Garnett playing point in the Western Conference Finals, do the Timberwolves move on?
The Timberwolves again, another team that was right there to, and then we're talking about KG. We're talking about one of the greatest players ever. You feel me? He is he's a champ in his own right as well. He had to switch teams, but at the same time, KG came into the league to be a champ. Like some players come in and you know that they're going to do great things. He was one of those players. He was having his runs in the Western conferences. So each year we're seeing KG get better. I definitely feel as though if he didn't have that pressure of having to try to be a ball handler, trying to distribute the ball, trying to make plays versus doing what he normally does, being able to spot up and shoot, being able to, catch somebody in the post or something like that, yeah, things would have been a little different. Then Sam Cassell was an awesome point guard. So
So do you think they would have beat the Lakers?
Yeah, I think they could have. Do I think they would have or could have? They possibly would have.
So if we had a healthy Timberwolves matchup versus a Pistons matchup, who would you have?
I think the Pistons would have beat them. I like the Lakers matchup wise against that Pistons team over the Timberwolves.
Well, here's what people don't realize when they lost Sam Cassell. They lost their best clutch player. Not only did they lose their best clutch player, they left their best post up scorer. Sam Cassell was an amazing post up scorer. He was amazing. I think he's the best point guard I've ever seen in the post. So so ultimately though, no, I don't think it's enough to beat the Lakers, and I think the Pistons. I think it's obviously a little closer, but I think that it would have to be Kobe.
You
It would
think
have
the
to be Kobe.
Timberwolves are closer?
No, no, no. I think the Timbers would have been closer to beating the Lakers. They wouldn't have lost in six. They probably would have lost in
Oh,
seven.
got you. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I just can't see Kobe not shooting it. If Kobe could not shoot it, then yeah, because he played awful that series. They goaded him into bad shots over and over again, and that's why he shot 40% and averaged 17 in Detroit. So what about '05? So '05's got a couple different interesting ones, and here are the three. So the Spurs beat the Pistons in seven, right? However, the Pistons beat an injured Shaq and Wade team in seven. If Wade and Shaq aren't injured, do they win? The Heat.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
you think the Heat
Again.
do? That was the
Yes.
last dominant Shaq season too. So okay, we'll go with that. Now, if the Pacers, if all of them didn't get suspended for the season, do the Pacers win it? Pacers or
That was
Heat?
that was a rowdy team. I think the Heat still win. This is during a time where you got, even though you still have who's on that Pacers team? That's Artest, Jalen.
Jamal Tinsley, Reggie Miller, Jamal Tinsley,
So
Reggie
you got
Miller, Al Harrington, Steven Jackson, Jermaine O'Neal, Jeff Foster. Actually, I think Al Harrington was traded for Steven Jackson. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's actually what happened. So Steven
and for
Jackson.
Miami, this is Shaq Wade. Do we still got Jason Williams?
No, Jason Williams ain't there yet.
He's not there yet.
No,
Okay,
he's
so we
there the
got
next
Eddie
year.
Jones.
Yeah, Eddie Jones is there.
So that's a good defensive dude.
Mhm.
I I can't remember everybody that was on the Heat at that point in time, but I remember Wade. I remember the way Wade was playing at that point in time. And if we have Shaq and Wade going up against Indiana, these are both the best two players in that series. I feel like Indiana does not have an answer for a healthy Wade and a healthy Shaq. And this is young Wade. This is the explosive Wade. So we're talking flash.
So if you want to know, we got Wade, Jones, Haslam, Damon Jones, Shaquille
Shit.
O'Neal, Keon Dooling, Alonzo Mourning, and Rasul Butler were their main. Oh, Leitner too.
Kristen Layton was there.
Yeah, but I mean, he was only like 13 minutes a game. He wasn't doing a whole lot. 10
Um,
minutes.
Miami. Indiana seems deeper, but Miami seems they seem stronger.
So you got the Heat in the finals then.
I got the Heat.
Okay, so let's also pretend in the West, Joe Johnson doesn't break his face. The Spurs beat the Suns 4-1. They have a healthy Joe Johnson that whole series. Do the Suns win that series?
Possibly.
So who you going? Who's meeting the Heat in the finals, you think?
I'm going with Phoenix.
Okay, so if you had a Phoenix Heat matchup, who would you have?
Ooh, the running gun versus the power. Oh shit. That point in time,
Yeah.
oh snap. I hate to say it, and I don't even mean to take up this much time. I hate to say it because my heart is telling me I want to say Phoenix, but my mind is telling me no. I'm still going with I'm still edging Wade and Shaq. But this is
And this is why we do this exercise, because as you see, a lot of times the best team does not necessarily win. And there's all these what if scenarios. Let's move on to '06. Okay. I think the major component, once again, is the Suns that year. Uh, the '06 Suns lost to the Mavs in the conference finals. They had been blowing out the Heat that year, beating them by like 20 each time. They just couldn't run. By then, Shaq was all they just could not keep up with them. Um, if the Suns weren't missing 3/5 of their starting lineup, in Raja Bell was missing games with a leg injury. Kurt Thomas missed the series, and so did Amari Stoudemire. If the Suns had all their pieces and they lost to the Mavs in 6, do you think they would have beat the Mavs?
Yeah.
Then do you
The
think they would
red
have gone on to beat the Heat?
yeah. I mean, possibly. I mean, we're coming at the end of Shaq's career. So even though physically he can be dominant, he's not asserting himself like that.
He was 13-10 in the finals that year.
See, exactly. He's not really asserting himself like that. 13-10, that's a drastic drop from what you expect of Shaq.
Well, his
Maybe
first
not the
finals with the
10.
Lakers was 38-17.
You feel me? Maybe not so let me see with that. Because I'm like, even the 10 is good. The ten is a good number, but at the same time, like 13 from Diesel,
I
that's
think
a
the Suns would
decline.
have I think the Suns would absolutely destroyed him in 06.
That's a decline.
Absolutely. Like I could see the 05 Heat and Suns matchup going back and forth. I think
Right.
06 the Suns just wax them, just kill them.
And that's the crazy thing about basketball years because it's such a mental thing, but then also you age so much faster. So it's like 1 year or one season to the next, depending on where you are in your career, can literally be 1 year or it can age you like 3 or 4. Like it's just crazy because it's like, from season to season, once you're in like season like 15, 16, 17, it's not going to be the same as season to season when you're in your like 2 or 3.
Well, a couple examples of that would be the 88 Lakers beating the Pistons 4-3 in the finals, and then the next year they got swept by the Pistons. Then just a few years later, the Pistons beating the Bulls in 7, then only to get swept the next year.
Exactly what I'm talking about. That's when you start coming down to your decline. That's when you start your your legacy starts coming to an end.
So let's go into this one. So let's keep it
Nice.
going. This is the whole reason why we're the Suns, because I think the Suns have 4 or 5 claims to titles that they haven't won.
You want
Um,
your reputation titles?
there we go. So '07, Spurs Sun first round, second round. Game 1, Nash has the bloody nose. He keeps
Mhm.
getting in, he'll tie it up, take a lead, can't get back in, and all that. Suns lose. Game 2, they blow out the Spurs. Game 3, the ref is literally betting against the Suns and went to prison over it. Game 4, Suns win with the Robert Ory hip check into Nash, which gets Amari and Boris Diaw suspended for Game 5. The Suns lose Game 5 by 3 points, and then Game 6, the Spurs just legitimately won. So, do you think if it wasn't for a bloody nose, the refs betting against the Suns, and a bullshit suspension, do you think the Suns win the title that year?
I mean, I don't see why not. During that era, during that run that Nash was on, where he's looking like, I mean, he was proven to be the best player in the league, actually. But like when Nash was on it, he had the whole team running. He had the whole team with his same agenda, and that's important when it comes to the finals. If you have a leader and everybody's willing to follow them, and that pace, that crazy pace,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it would have been too much for the fundamental team.
Yeah, I would have went with the '07 Suns too. Like I said, there were so many. It seemed like the universe was really working against them. Multiple things happen, not just one. Multiple things. Normally, it only takes one thing for you to lose a series, and they had multiple things. Let's go '08. Okay, the Celtics beat the Lakers by 40 in Game 6. They came back on them in Game 4 when they were down by like 20 something. Do you think if the Lakers had Andrew Bynum, that would have swung the series?
No, no, Boston was gonna win that one. Yeah, it just is what it is. Like that one, they was gonna win that year.
Okay, so I have another good one. So '09 is a very interesting year for a multitude of reasons. So 2009, the Lakers ended up beating the Magic, but there was a few things that happened. One, we'll go with the Suns again. Amari eye detached retina, loses him for the season. They don't make the playoffs. They put up back-to-back 140-point games after the All-Star break, after there was a coaching change. They look like they were going with an offense called 7 seconds or Shaq, and it was probably their most proficient one because they couldn't get a good shot in 7 seconds. They threw it down to the Diesel. It was his last All NBA selection where he could still draw a double team or get a good shot. There's that one. There is the Lakers beat the Rockets in 7 games, but the Rockets were missing Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady, their two best players, and they still took them to 7. They beat the Nuggets in 6, where the Nuggets forgot how to inbound the ball and kept throwing the ball away
You
at the end of
know,
games. Right. And then there was the biggest one that everybody would argue. The Celtics were what, 31-4 before Garnett went down with his injury. So, do any of those things swing the 2009 title?
yeah, I mean, any one of those things could have realistically.
Well, I'm saying, who would you go with? Who do you think had the best shot if no there was no healthy, no bull, everybody was just at their peak playing?
I think KG is the bigger factor.
As do I. I think they definitely win. I think the Rockets have a good chance to win too if McGrady and Yao play. I don't think they had really an answer for Yao. I think McGrady was on his downswing, but he was still good for a game or two that series. So maybe that was it. Let's go 2010 playoffs. Lakers win again. They beat the Celtics 4-3. First off, if the Delonte West and Gloria James stuff doesn't happen, do you think the Cavs beat the Celtics?
But I think the Cavs beat the Celtics without the drama.
Yeah.
Dang. Uh, no. I mean, maybe honestly, I don't know if that's what
Give me a
drove
pie
them.
chart.
I say I'll go with 65-55. I mean 65-55, 65-35.
Celtics win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Celtics still win with that one. Um, then let's move on to the finals. If if the refs didn't decide to screw the Celtics out of a championship in Game 7 in the fourth quarter with a bunch of bullshit ass calls, because just to let you know, just to show you what I mean is they were allowed to play one way. Anybody watch it and tell me you don't come to this conclusion. Watch the first 3 quarters and then watch the fourth
Mhm.
quarter and see how it was ref completely different. The Celtics got 6 free throw attempts in the fourth quarter. How many free throw attempts do you think the Lakers got?
You said the Celtics got how many? Six?
6.
Six. Lakers, what they got, like 13?
21. 21 to win by 4. They needed to outshoot the Celtics by 15 free throws to win by 4. And then in the fourth quarter, it was the Lakers were still allowed to play with fouls, and the Celtics were no longer allowed to foul. And that's what it looked like. So 2010, that definitely was changed with some bullshit officiating, if nothing else. Let's go 2011. Um, do you think the Mavs were really the better team than the Heat, or the Heat just fell apart?
Once again, this is one of those. It seemed like both. I feel as though the Mavs were the. I feel as though the team. I mean, the team. I feel as though the Heat was the team that had greater players, but I feel as
Mhm.
though the Mavs had better players. Like I feel as though the
They played more
Mavs,
team ball.
yeah, and they had been doing it. You feel me? They weren't a team that had to try to figure it out all in one season. They were a team that had already been gelling and working as a unit. They had already gotten to a point where they knew what everybody's role and job was going to be when it came down to the playoffs. Whereas the Heat, they're hold up, wait, you taking over or Ron, am I taking over? Or you feel me? And I feel as though, yeah, the Heat, it was just a season of them getting familiar with each other. So I feel as though even though they may have had the better players, I mean the greater players, I should say, I don't think they had the better team yet.
Okay. What about if and I agree with you. So you're thinking if LeBron even played great, they still wouldn't have won.
Yeah, I don't think they would have won. Not
Okay,
that
what
season.
what about the 2011 Celtics with Shaq and that he could never get healthy? And they were something like, oh, I forget the number, but it was something like 17-3 when all five of them played. Rondo, Allen, Pierce, Garnett, Shaq.
Dang.
Even they were just killing teams, and then Shaq couldn't play because of the leg. Rondo got his right arm either hyperextended or dislocated in the playoffs.
Elbow,
So do you
wasn't it?
think?
I think.
Yeah. So do you think if the Celtics were healthy, they would have beat the Heat in the second round? And then do you think they would have beat the Mavs?
Yeah, I think the healthy Celtics was an unfair team. I felt like the sky was the limit. I mean, to be honest, from the time the Celtics got their big three, it was pretty much any season you couldn't count them out.
You know what really
So
sucks is the Celtics won in 08, 09, like we just said, they had the KG injury. They were like 31-4. Then in 2010, they had the refs fuck them. Then in 2011, they were back to injuries. They legitimately had a chance to win four straight
yeah,
and
I'm
only got
telling
one.
you, yeah, and it's crazy because it looks like that unit didn't work, but it did. That was a phenomenal unit. It's just help. You feel me? People were getting hurt, and were that not the case, the Celtics would have went on a nice little historic run.
2012, let's say Chris Paul goes to the Lakers. Is that enough to stop the Heat?
2012, Chris Paul. Yeah,
So you would have had the Lakers winning if that they didn't veto the trade.
at that point, yeah. The way Chris was back then, yeah. Chris was good for making his team better. You feel me? You put him on a Laker team with his IQ and his hunger. Yeah,
See, I don't think they could have toppled the Heat. That was just prime LeBron, and he's was just better. I think even a diminished Wade was a little bit better than Chris Paul, just for the simple fact he was bigger, able to get buckets. Chris Paul often gets hurt deeper runs, no matter his age. So I think it's a compelling argument. I could definitely see how the Lakers would win, but I just don't think that they would. I don't know if they
and I'm
could
with
have.
you.
I don't know if
I
they
see
could have
what
beat the Thunder, the athletic Thunder, because once Kobe got a little older, them athletes really caused a problem.
yeah.
Um, let's go 2013, and this is where this is the last one. Were the Heat better than the Spurs that year?
Oh, 2013.
If it
No,
wasn't a series
no,
of missed free throws,
no,
bad substitutions, a
no,
lucky
because
offensive.
I think that was the season. I mean, I think that was yeah, I think that was a series where I'm even seeing Tim Duncan like blow like layups at the
Yeah,
rim.
the
I was
bunny.
like,
Yeah.
what is happening? Anyway, no. Honestly, I don't think the Heat were better than the Spurs at any point when they played each other. I feel as though, obviously they got a victory against them, but I don't feel as though they were ever better.
So there you have it. We have a bunch of different players. See how the best is now. So when you guys are factoring in, who's going to win the title this upcoming season, don't just think who's the best. Think who's going to be the luckiest, who's going to have a good matchup, who's got good chemistry, who's got a bunch of factors in it, because those are the difference between champions and a second round exit and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Who does well under pressure, things like that.
So let's go into something else I want to talk about. I want to talk about the '01 NBA draft. I
Okay.
think that is some of these players we were just talking about. I think that is a very underrated draft. I think if we put together a team, a top 12 team of their best seasons, I think that draft can hang with anybody. Just for example, we have 8 people that made an all-star team. We had 7 that made an all NBA team. We had 3 that made an all defensive team. We got a defensive player of the year. We have 7 different guys that have won champions, a couple Hall of Famers, a rookie of the year, a couple most improved. We got statistical leaders, and we got finals MVPs. We have literally everything but an MVP. Literally everything. So I want you to kind of help me narrow it down to the 12 best. of that draft, and then we'll put that team together and we'll say, just to show you how good that team could have been. So the first up, we have Kwame Brown. And I know that, a lot of people like to clown Kwame, but Kwame was solid at his peak. He was 11, 7, 2 assists, a block, and a steal. Those solid numbers.
Oh,
Next up,
that's decent.
right. I'm saying that's a rotation player. That's not necessarily a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
bust.
yeah.
You're not going to be like, my God, that dude sucks. He's averaging 11 and 7.
Right, 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 right. You're gonna get
Okay,
some
next,
minutes with that.
right. Next up, we got Tyson Chandler, who he was 12, 12, and 2. We have Pau Gasol, who was 21, 12, and 5. We have Eddie Curry, who was 20 and 7. We have Jason Richardson, who was 23, 7, and 4. We have Shane Battier, who was 14, 5, and 3, and 2. We have one of the most talented people ever I'd ever seen was Eddie Griffin. RIP to him. Which shitty way he died, shitty and embarrassing way he died. And if you don't know it, look it up.
Oh yeah, it's just all
Yeah,
that.
but anyways, yeah, he had alcohol problems, drug problems, floated in out his per 36 because he never really got a lot of minutes. He only played a few seasons. He was 13, 11, and 4 blocks, and he could also hit threes. We got Joe Johnson, 25, 5, and 7. We got Richard Jefferson, 22, 7, and 4. We got Troy Murphy, who most people don't even heard of. He was 15 and 12. He said he can say something that Amari can never say. He was a double guy. We got Zach Randolph, who's 24 and 12. Gerald Wallace, who was 19, 10, 4, 2, and 3. Samuel Dallenberg, who was 11 and 10. Jamal Tinsley, who was 15 and 8. Tony Parker, who was 22 and 8. Gilbert Arenas, who was 29, 7, and 5. And Mehmet Okor, who was 18 and 9. So out of those names, and I'm going to write it down as we go, who are some names that jump out to you if we were making a top 12 team?
Obviously, we gotta start off with Powell. That's
Okay, so
Powell's
Powell,
probably the best one on this list
right?
all
So we got
around.
Powell. Yeah, we got Powell in there. Okay, there's one. Um, are we gonna add Gilbert Arenas?
Gilbert Arenas is yes, yeah. I was gonna say Gilbert Arenas is also one of the dopest players on his list. But yeah, as
For
far
those that
as
don't know, he had a 2-year run, 3-year run where he wasn't injured before he got injured. He was as good as anybody in the league
yeah,
on any given
and,
night.
and, and he was kind
Uh,
of short, so he was kind of undersized. But yeah, dude,
6'3".
not yeah. Don't sleep on Agent Zero. Like that's they call him the original Steph at times. But yeah, Gilbert Arenas, that boy was nothing to play with. I'm not even lying.
What about Tyson Chandler? You want to add him to the list?
Yeah, Tyson can get added to the list. Might as well throw Joe Johnson on there as well.
Okay, we got Joe Johnson on there. What about Zach Randolph?
Yes.
Tony Parker?
Of course, I thought we already said Parker, but yeah, of course, he has to
No.
go on the list.
Okay. What about Eddie Curry? You got Eddie Curry on there?
Um,
20 and 7 at his peak, 60%.
yeah,
I mean, we'll go Eddie Curry. What about Jason Richardson?
yeah, Richardson is on
Shane Battier?
there. Oh man, see, it's getting tough now. 'Cause how many we got?
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8. We got 4 left. Some of the guys left are Mehmet Okor, Jamal Tinsley, Gerald Wallace, Richard
Richard
Jefferson,
Jefferson,
and
see,
Shane Battier, I think, would be the wait, 1, 2, 3. Actually, man, I would say those just be the 4 that fill it out. With Mehmet
three.
Okor, Richard
Yeah,
Jefferson, Shane Battier,
okay.
and there was one other, Gerald Wallace.
Gerald Wallace, all right, for sure.
So what I'm saying is if you're running a backcourt of like Tony Parker and Gilbert Arenas, you got maybe a small forward in Joe Johnson. If you want to go, or if you want defense, you got Gerald Wallace. You got a power forward in like, oh, I don't know, Zach Randolph, and you got a center in Pau Gasol. Who's beating that team? And why doesn't it get enough credit for how dope that draft really is? Just for context, they say the '84 draft is one of the best ever with Jordan, Barkley, Hakeem, Stockton. Only 7 players made an All-Star team in that one. 8 made it on this one.
how many of these eight though that made it are going to be Hall of Famers though?
Well, so
And that's
far we
not to
already
take away from the list. That's not because yeah, this is an exceptional like just the top 10. Like just looking at the top 10 is crazy. The level of talent just in the first 10.
well two
Like
are two are already in the Hall of Fame, and if Gilbert Arenas hadn't got hurt, that would definitely be three.
yeah, he would have went. Dang. I mean, you look at players like Joe Johnson. I mean, Joe Johnson could have did more.
Joe
I
Johnson
mean,
could still get in the Hall of Fame. He's got over 20,000 points.
oh, okay. So it ain't over for him then. All right.
Right. So I mean, so there's four right there that have a good case against four. Obviously, the problem that I think really why this draft does not get considered is because there's no MVPs. You look at all the top drafts: 96, Kobe, Nash, Iverson, MVPs. 2003, LeBron, he's the only one MVP. 84, Barkley, Hakeem, Jordan. I think that's what this draft is missing. But if we were to
I,
do, and I think maybe we'll one time we'll battle it out with drafts and we'll think who will win. But I mean, I think this draft at its peak could hold its own with anybody.
but you know what though? And part of the reason too, is because even though they didn't have one, and I know almost doesn't count, but let's be real, two of the people on this list could have gotten MVP. There's actually three, if we've been honest. Parker obviously wasn't gonna get it because of his points, but as far as his wins, like that could have put Parker in a position. And if he scored a little bit more, but that aside, Parker aside, when I look at Gilbert Arenas and I look at like a Joe Johnson, these are two players with these are the
Potential,
caliber, huh?
potential.
Yeah, these are the ones that got that MVP potential. These are MVP caliber players at their best. You
Well,
feel
see,
me? I don't.
I don't know about Joe Johnson. I'm definitely with you on Arenas. So I am definitely up with you on Arenas. I think that dude was amazing. I watched him outduel Kobe. I watched him drop 60. I've watched him, and especially like I said, he was 6'3", but he played like he was 6'6", 6'7", because he was so wide. That's how Gilbert Arenas' shoulders look. He's so
Got them
wide.
basketballs on his shoulders.
Right. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to do a draft. And I mean, I think other than the top drafts, if you were to pick all the players out of the draft, who's really beating this team? I think they smoke '03's draft.
They smoke O3.
I think they smoke '03. Below, don't get me wrong, you got LeBron and Wade, and then it's a drastic fall off with Carmelo at the third, and then it's even more fall off with Chris Bosh at your fourth.
I don't know though, but if we were to put that same, like if we were to put Wade, LeBron, Melo, Bosh, if we were to put them up against the lineup that we just made for the '01, I don't know. I don't think '01 is getting with them like that.
Well, I watched Tony Parker with LeBron on him in the finals get whatever he wants. So if he can get
Tony
that with
Parker
LeBron,
was the-
right? So if Tony can get that with him, um, Wade is the same size, a little inch bigger, but same size as peak Arenas. I don't think he's stopping Arenas. You
but
got a
Arena ain't
Gerald.
stopping him neither though.
No, I agree. So that's a wash. Um, you got a prime Gerald Wallace. You can put on one of those guys. You can put on Mello or whoever. Or if you want to go scoring, you got Joe Johnson. I just think there's so much more depth to it. And that's where I think they smoke them. I think in the depth, especially like I said, these guys are you're looking at career like Gilbert Arenas at his peak is on a level with them. He's up there with them. He just didn't do it every year.
Hmm.
But he's on that level. Pau Gasol is awesome. They have the best post player in Pau Gasol, and then they have the second best post player in Zach Randolph. So they have another defensive guy in Batty
Hold
A.
on, because I gotta stop because I was more so going just off the five that you named. But yeah, as far as a whole class, you're right. Yeah. Oh, one
Yeah.
class is better. Yes.
Mm,
But I don't feel as though a starting lineup from that class will be better than a starting lineup from '03. But the
no, I,
class
I agree.
itself, yes.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So there y'all have it. That is all we got. I'm gonna leave since I got the agreements from him. We're gonna check y'all back tomorrow. Until then, make sure y'all like and subscribe and take care.